first of all, Mr. Ferencz, thank you so much for taking the time to have this interview today. It really is an honor for me to talk to you. It's very impressive. I mean, I am a young lawyer. I studied international law, and as someone who studied international criminal law early on in Germany, it really is for me a very important moment to talk to you as the last eyewitness of the Nuremberg trials that really started international criminal law. And that really brings me already to my first question, which relates to your role in the Nuremberg trials. So it's been almost 75 years since you acted as chief prosecutor in the so-called Einsatzgruppen trial, so the United States of America versus Otto Ohlendorf and others. And I'm wondering, in your view, how important was this trial in particular and the Nuremberg trials in general for the advancement of international law and world peace?
Well, it's very easy for me to say, oh, it was very important trial. But the truth is, it's difficult to measure the significance of the trial. I am overwhelmed with fan mail. People who write to me, they're going to name their grandchildren after me. If someone, hooray for what I'm doing. The Germans offering me medals and degrees. So that there certainly is some impact. How important that is in the overall picture is not easy to measure. I can tell you from my own experience in the Einsatzgruppen trial, I was then 27 years old. I am now 102, and I've been working all that time to make a better world. What have you got to show for it? Well, not much, because it takes a while, it takes a long while. We have glorified the current system for centuries. David got rid of Goliath by hitting him in the head with a rock. That was the beginning of how do you deal with your adversary? You kill him. That's glorious. That's what gets the parade and the thanks and the flags are flying. To reverse that, which has been glorified for centuries, cannot be done in a short period of time. I have been trying for a long period. I don't think anybody has done longer than I have. And I see the progress. It's not flaring that from now on, nobody's going to go to war. From now on, the soldiers will not start marching. From now on, the flags will be put down. Not at all. They continue with the symbols of the old system. And before you can change them, you have to change the hearts and minds of the people who control public opinion. If you can't change the hearts, the desire to be humane and behave like a human being, if you can't change their mind, you'll never change the system. So you've got to change the hearts first and the minds, and then there are plenty of books that I have written and others which will tell you how to get there. And it will not be easy and it will not be quick. And it has not been easy and it has not been quick, but the progress is there. I see the progress and I've been heartened by the progress. The fact that you are on the TV now asking me these difficult questions is progress, because you thought it through, you had a legal mind approaching the questions, you see the difficulties, and you say, please tell us something to cheer us up. I can't cheer you up other than to say, never give up. That's my slogan. 3 slogans: never give up, 2, never give up, 3, never give up. Why do I say that? Because if you give up, we're lost. And it takes a long time. And I see it in my lifetime. But the progress is very real. We have an international court. It's staffed by competent people, dedicated people. It is beginning to function. It has many problems. The world has not accepted the court. The United States has been opposed to the court. And so you have a very difficult situation. But if you never give up and never give up hope, either we'll get there or we'll just kill everybody on the planet.
All right. So I do think that that is a very potent starting statement. I would like to come back to this point of changing people's hearts and minds and your experience from the Einsatzgruppen trial. So the Einsatzgruppen trial took place in 1947. So it did not receive the same attention as the main Nuremberg trial 1946 had. And I'm wondering, how did the public perceive these later trials, the ones that followed the main trial in 1946, and the judgments, and what was their significance for transitional justice in the nascent German Federal Republic, speaking of the hearts and minds that you're seeking to change through international law?
You put a lot of questions together there. Well, how was it significant? Not much, not much. The people have forgotten, they can't pronounce Einsatzgruppen, for one thing. So it would be untrue to say, oh boy, from now on, I'm a big hero, now down with the Einsatzgruppen and so on. The people have other concerns, particularly after a war. They have to find bread and housing. And they say, why should we talk now about punishing criminals? We were doing our duty. No, don't bother me with that. So there's more of an attitude of don't bother me with those theoretical dreamers' ideas of a peace-loving world. I think that would be an honest answer to your question, unfortunately. But the fact that you're asking the question gives me hope, because you keep asking the question. Just never give up. One day I won't be here. The devil will give me permission to go and visit. I'll say, see, I told you, I didn't give up.
I do have another question with regards to the Einsatzgruppen trial, even though maybe the significance at the time was not very big. It is now, I believe, from a historical perspective. And my question relates to the sentence that was handed down in the trial. I read that the presiding judge, Michael Mismano, he was actually an advocate against the death penalty, yet the trial did result in 14 death penalties. And Mismano apparently had severe inner conflicts because of that. But then out of the 14 death sentences, 10 were subsequently commuted to either life imprisonment or even shorter imprisonment sentences. And the last defendant was released, I believe, after some campaigning on behalf of different societal groups in 1958. So what is the relationship, in your view, between the trial and the punishment, and then between punishment, the sentence, and its execution?
You've touched on one of the most difficult problems that I faced as a prosecutor. I remember very well, it was a Sunday morning. I went into the courthouse before the trials began, and I had my opening statement, a draft of it, and I was reviewing it. And I thought, how can you obtain justice in a case like this? I have 22 defendants selected because the number of seats was limited by the size of the courtroom. An absolutely absurd way to judge. And you're going to try to do justice. On the scales of justice, there is no way you can balance 1 million innocent people murdered, slaughtered with 22 defendants. And I was limited to 22 defendants. They were guilty as hell. I had their reports. There was no question whatsoever about their guilt. I never called a witness. I said, I don't need a witness. I have these contemporaneous documents, top secret, sent to their highest headquarters, reporting how many people they killed and where and why. And so I rested my case in 2 days, and I convicted all of them. But what happened after that? Clemency came along, Christmas amnesty came along, and 22 of them were not executed. 4 of them were executed. I was invited to attend the execution. said I skip it. I didn't want to be appearing on there looking for vengeance. And I did not attend the execution, but they sent me the film anyway. And so I could see them being hanged, the few that were hanged. So what does it mean? What's the bottom line? That's what you're asking me. The bottom line is never give up. It's a slow process. It's not an easy thing to sentence anybody to death, particularly when he thinks he was innocent of any wrongdoing. He was doing his patriotic duty to protect his fatherland from being assaulted by the Russians. And they were going to kill everybody. So therefore, it was his duty to stand up for justice for Germany. And with that mentality, you can't change the hearts and minds, because the minds are set. My country, Deutschland über alles, became a slogan. And they were not looking for change. They were looking, you might call it vengeance, you might call it justice. They were looking to do what they thought was in the interest of their country. And you'll be interested to know that the President of the United States, the former president, I'm happy to say, Mr. Trump, when he made his first appearance at the United Nations General Assembly, the heads of state are all invited. He made the interesting point. He said, look, I'm going to tell the head of North Korea, if you threaten us or our allies, we will totally destroy you. And I was listening to this on the television. And I said, Mr. President, what are you saying? How do you totally destroy a country? Do you line up all the people like the Einsatzgruppen did and kill them all, one after the other? When do you stop? You'll totally destroy them? And why? Ollendorf had explained he was just doing his patriotic duty. You are telling North Korea, Mr. President, that if they threaten you or your allies, you'll totally destroy them. What kind of a threat is that? That was Ollendorf defense. And I personally was responsible for Ollendorf hanging, the father of 5 children, well-educated Dr. Otto Ollendorf. I didn't feel very good about listening to the President of the United States threatening to do the same thing for the same reasons. So it reflects on the complicated nature of the problem you raise. There is no quick or easy answer to it, which is going to satisfy everybody. All you can do is let your conscience be your guide. Treat human beings like human beings. Act like a human being. And we will slowly move, I hope, toward a more humane world. I'm now 102 years old. It's not my world, but it's the world of the young people. And I am concerned for their welfare. And I am more than ever concerned because our capacity to kill has grown enormously. We have now the capacity from cyberspace to cut off the electrical grid on planet Earth. Not only we, the United States has it, the Russians have it. I don't know if the Germans have it or not, but other countries have it or will have it. If they cut off the electrical grid, this was told me in confidence 10 years ago by an American general who was working out of the Pentagon. And I said to him, well, how long will it take for everybody to be killed? He said, well, I'm not familiar with any studies which have been made on that yet, but my guess is that it would depend upon the amount of water they had. If they had water, they probably could survive for about a week. Well, how nice. You probably could survive for a week. That's the world you are living. That's the world we spend billions of dollars to give us more strength to kill more people. Are we gone crazy? Some people think I'm crazy. Well, I expect that. But the basic issue for every human being and every person in Germany or elsewhere, ask yourself, is law better than war, or is war better than law? If you come to the conclusion that war is better than law, then you should have your head examined, because you're crazy. War can never be better than war. We've seen the effects of World War I and World War II, and now all the war is still going on to settle their disputes. It's a crazy thing to do. Particularly, Shell, we are trying to build an institution to settle your dispute by peaceful means, go to a court. I worked very hard to create the International Criminal Court after the IMT, the International Military Tribunal, was closed down. And I said, we need a permanent court. We can't just have a one-time shot against one country. We need a permanent court to treat everybody equally. And so I worked very hard to have that done. And I suppose it was in recognition of my effort when the International Military Tribunal in The Hague, now the permanent court, got the first case. The chief prosecutor, Marino Ocampo, called me up. He said, Ben, we'd like you to do the closing remarks for the prosecution. It's your court. And I did. And so it was a recognition. And slowly it is being recognized, very slowly. Not everybody. Many people think it's foolish. Some people in high government offices think it's foolish. The only thing that counts is power. If you have the power, use it. If you have to kill the people who are involved, kill them. That sounds too much like Deutschland Liberalis to me. And I can't support that, and I've not supported it. So it's a long answer to a short question. Let's continue.
Yeah, since you mentioned the International Criminal Court, I'll go to that question, since you advocated all your life, as you said, for the establishment of a permanent International Criminal Court. The court is now nearing its 20th anniversary since the Rome Statute entered into force. And I'm wondering, what's your take on the court's work over the past 20 years? Has it met your expectations?
The answer is no. It has not met my expectations, because my expectations were not real. To assume that one little guy, even with all the helpers like you, can reverse a system which has been glorified for centuries, that you could change that around in one lifetime, or in 50 years or 100 years, is assuming something which is not possible. People love their war. They love their marching. They love the flags flying. They love their national anthems. And if you threaten it, be careful. They'll love to kill you if you threaten them. So that is the current thinking. And how do you turn that around? Well, we're lawyers. We know if you have a dispute you can't settle, you go to a court and let the court reach a conclusion, which we hope will be for your side, but which we'll hope be fair. And that's the way we do it. And that's the way we have to do it with the big problems as well. And if we think we can just save the bigger problems, we'll do it by forcing our point of view down the throat of who the adversary is. You are the victim. The people they're going to kill are not the people who are causing the problem. They're going to kill innocent victims, and they'll kill them by the millions. And I have seen that. I have seen it as a combat soldier. I have seen the killing. I have seen the killing of thousands of children. And it's what keeps me going. I can't stop, because it can't be done in a short period of time. So never give up and keep going.
So that brings me to another question, which is really international criminal law, other than other branches of law, deals with really unimaginable evil. You've mentioned the killing of thousands of innocent children, of civilians. So it is really, the Einsatzgruppen trial was it was an organized crime of an unimaginable scale. So it really is this human evil side that international criminal law tries to address. And I believe many people wonder, is law really an adequate tool? Can it really react to some of the worst crimes that human beings are capable of?
Yes, I think we can. Your assumption that the human animal is neither human, but is an animal. Even in the animals, they don't kill any other animal unless they want to eat it. They're hungry. If we required everybody who goes to war to eat up his adversaries, that might change their thinking. No, but a serious answer to your question. It's not easy to change somebody who has glorified something else for a long period of time. And they glorified in many ways. They gave me 5 battle stars as when I was honorably discharged as a sergeant of infantry in World War II. I was a Harvard Law graduate. I was very knowledgeable on international and criminal law. And when they came to give me my honorable discharge, they gave me a ribbon with 5 stars on it. I said, "What's that for?" I was no hero. "Oh, well, you landed on Normandy Beach, didn't you?" "Yes, I did." "You went through the Maginot Line, didn't you?" "Yeah, I went through the Maginot Line." "You went through the Siegfried Line, the German defenses and the Frenchmen." "Yes, I did." "You were there for the final battle of the Bulge." "Yes, I was." "And you didn't even get killed once." "We'll give you a star for that." Good behavior. So I got 5 stars on a ribbon, which I gave to my son. I don't know what he did with it. So, you glorify killing, you glorify war making. And how do you turn that around? Slowly, one word answer, slowly. And don't expect it to be quick either. It can't be. And will we ever reach that point? I think if we don't, we'll kill everybody on this planet. I'm serious about that. Why should this planet Earth be the only planet which has life on it in the universe? What happened to the other planets? I don't know. But I do know that if you don't curb this appetite to kill your adversaries and his family and his children, which was the German approach to the problem, I don't know what the end will be of man. We call ourselves human beings. I say behave like human beings. Treat people in a humane way. Everybody, I said in my opening statement, the case I present is a plea of humanity to law. Vengeance is not our goal. I was trying to get a rule of law which would give all human beings the same legal rights to live in peace and human dignity, regardless of their race or their creed or their color. That was my goal in that case, and stated very clearly in the opening paragraph. And I've stayed with that all my life. And people say, "Why do you do that?" I can't stop. I know I'm right. And if you know I'm right, and other people know I'm right, and many of them do, I get all kinds of medals and all kinds of honorary doctorate degrees from universities, respected universities, fan mail, bunches of fan mail saying you're right, what can we do to help? That gives me hope. And I hope you will, young people like you, will pick up the torch and run with it when it slips from my hand, which will not be far away. If you can't run with it, walk with it. If you can't walk with it, crawl with it. But never give up. And eventually, I hope, you'll have a more peaceful and human world.
So you were saying before that one of the most important things really is to change people's hearts and minds and to curb this appetite for vengeance, like to really try to make people understand that violence is not the answer. So some people would argue that when you have protracted conflict situations, sometimes negotiating a peace, so the cessation of violence, requires that justice take a back seat, so that some of the people who are responsible for unimaginable violence get an amnesty so that they stop the killing. This is this old peace versus justice debate. What's your take on that?
They don't know what they're talking about. If they think that you can have peace in a system which you go out and kill thousands of people who had nothing to do with anything. These were innocent people. It's not that you're punishing the wrongdoer. People you're killing in war, you didn't even know them. You didn't even know where the country was located. And you go out and you march out and you kill everybody, as many as you can. And the more you kill, the more battles are to you.
That's a very clear answer. I have some questions relating to the International Criminal Court and some of the ongoing cases there. You mentioned before that the International Criminal Court has faced criticism. There are people who say it's nonsense. It is the subject of power politics, as is any international organization or institution, I guess. And so one case that was particularly interesting in terms of power politics was, of course, the situation in Afghanistan and the ongoing investigations by the prosecution. So in a first step, the prosecutors request to open investigations in Afghanistan, and those were investigations that were conducted, amongst others, against US soldiers. It was first rejected by a pretrial chamber on the grounds that investigations wouldn't serve the interest of justice, and due to the fact that the circumstances in Afghanistan were such that prospects for a successful investigation or prosecution were considered really limited. So my question is, should the ICC challenge powerful actors, and who decides ultimately which trials are in the interest of justice?
If you know in advance that your court does not have power to enforce its decision, then it's very tempting not to render a decision which you know is just, but which will not be enforced. And I think that's the position the court found itself in connection with crimes in Afghanistan. The only correct answer, that is, that a crime is a crime and it should be punishable, because punishment is a deterrent to the repetition of crimes. And that's the goal of criminal law, as you know. If you give up in advance, you're finished. Then the devil will take over. They'll kill everybody. I saw them. I met them. I talked to them. They killed thousands of children, one shot at a time. And they were very decent people otherwise, and educated people. And I'm sure they were kind to their cats and dogs. That's the world in which I came, and the world which I'm going to leave soon. Goodbye to the world. But people have got to deal with it. And the problems that you raised, when the court judges say, look, we can't enforce it. There's no use going ahead with this, where the world is not yet ready. I can understand that, because the world is not yet ready. And so if the judges know in advance that although the party is guilty, they can't arrest him, they can't try him, they can't hang him, they can't do anything, because they don't have the power and the public support. So that's the situation in Afghanistan and elsewhere. I'm sure that cases come up to the court and they say, well, gee whiz, we'll never find them. And if we did find them, we couldn't try them. And if we ever tried them, we couldn't punish them. There are such situations because the world is divided. And there are many people, John Bolton, for example, who was the president's advisor, President Trump's advisor, on many visits to heads of state, who said, there's no such thing as international law. You can't enforce it, so it's no law. And if you have the power, You don't like what the other guy's doing, kill him. And just, that's it. And that was, he had quite a bit of a following, I guess. I didn't follow except with the news. But, so it's a complicated problem. It's not easily solved and it's not quickly solved. But my answer to it is you should never give up. Well, I've been doing it a long time, but I want to last forever. I need somebody like you to say, hey, he's right. Law is better than war. So let's support law and let's denigrate war. Let's treat the war with the contempt that it deserves. And every war, incidentally, that I've ever heard of has rape of women as one of its goals. And I saw it in World War II as well when the Russians got into Berlin. They raped everything in sight. And the girls would come up to me, I wore an American uniform, and say, please save me from the Russians. Please help me. And so war and rape go hand in hand. And so I'm glad to see a woman interrogating me because they're the first victims too, mothers and women who are not protected. So it's complicated, it's difficult, and it takes courage not to be discouraged. And that's what I try to do. I point to the positive. I'm aware of the negative, that it takes time. States are not ready to cooperate with the court. If the judge wants to arrest somebody and the government says, no, he's our former head of state, we're not turning him over to you. And anybody who comes in and tries to arrest him, will put them in jail. So you have that world in which you live. Not everybody agrees with you. And they're not ready to cooperate. They're ready to sabotage. And they're ready to defeat and provide escape for the criminals. That's the world in which we live. So to expect to change that in one human lifetime is to expect what is impossible. But I'm glad to see a nice young person like you pick up this banner and walk with it, run with it, crawl with it, but never put it down. So
I believe, so the prosecution didn't give up, obviously. They appealed the decision by the pretrial chamber, and the appeals chamber then confirmed the opening of investigations in Afghanistan. So at least that case is going to be investigated, and we will see what comes of it in the years to come. I would like to talk briefly about another case at the International Criminal Court that has drawn a lot of attention, which is one of the cases in the situation of Uganda, the Lord's Resistance Army. So the one case in which a judgment has been reached was the case against Dominic Ongwen, who was a former child soldier. So he was recruited as a child soldier by the Lord's Resistance Army and then later on committed unimaginable crimes. So he was later a rebel leader. So he's both victim and perpetrator. He was now convicted of crimes against humanity and war crimes. He was sentenced to an imprisonment of 25 years. How do you think the International Criminal Court or international criminal justice at large should deal with such cases where individuals are both victims and perpetrators? What's your take on this case?
Well, I argued the first case. The first case, the only case they had to be argued was against the accused who was accused of recruiting child soldiers. And I pointed out that the pain that it causes to the mothers and the family of the child soldiers who go eagerly, they want to learn how to shoot the gun and they want to help their country and so on. And they're really children, 13-year-old, 14-year-old children. And then you have specific cases. I can't follow all of the cases in detail, so I don't want to comment on specifics. But if they're child soldiers, it's a crime. It's listed as a crime in the statute of the court. So anybody who is recruiting child soldiers or training them to kill is committing a crime, and he should be put on trial and given a fair trial. If he's found guilty, he should be given a fair punishment. And that's all I can say. There are difficulties on the way. People don't agree. They say a child, and all that. But You lay down your principle, and then you carry it out as best you can. And sometimes you can't, because the government won't cooperate. Sometimes the criminal escapes. You don't seek perfection either. No matter what system you have, there will be some people who will escape the noose. And so that's it. You don't quit because it's not perfect. And it will never be perfect. There'll always be some loopholes somewhere for somebody. And never give up, never give up, never give up.
So that already answers a little bit my last question that I have, which is, if you look back at your life and at the same time into the future, do you believe that there will be one day an international criminal court that all states support and that can really consistently enforce international criminal law worldwide?
No, not that all states will support, because some states will not support it. I don't think Hitler would have approved of an international criminal court. You don't look for perfection. They don't all have to support it. The criminals are not in favor of a criminal court. Therefore, you say, oh, the people don't believe in it. Well, if they don't believe in it, if you have the power to arrest them, you arrest them. And if you have a court ready to give them a fair trial in public view, you give him a fair trial. And if he doesn't like the sentence, well, that's too bad for him. You can leave him hanging. But so there are problems. Of course, there are problems. Very great problems. I mean, I'm just sorry for the judges and the prosecutors on the court were seeing in the United States trying to kill the court, saying if they dare to investigate an American, we'll cut off their budgets, or we'll cut them, won't let it come into the country, and all kinds of threats like that kind. And they had the Service Members Protection Act, which was supported by most of the Senate. And I asked some of the senators, how could you support such an act? The act provided that if the court arrests anybody who's an American, we can use all necessary means to liberate him. All necessary means is the code word for go to war. So we're threatening little Holland that if you dare to take an American, put him on trial, or try to put him on trial, we'll kill you all. That's the American government giving it a threat. And it's not just this particular politician or the others. Sometimes the political situation is such that they have to compromise some of their principles. And so it's imperfect. So your answer to your question really is, we are trying to create a more perfect world. The goal sounds easy. Somebody commits a horrible act, hold them accountable in a court of law and give them a punishment which will deter the crime in future. Will it be perfect? No. Is it necessary? Yes. When will we have it? Not in my lifetime, but in yours. So we're beginning. And in the beginning of every problem has problems, and it's to be expected and not to be discouraged by it. So have the courage not to be discouraged, and have the vision to see a peaceful future where everybody is entitled to be treated as a human being. Anyway, and I wish you the best of luck.
Well, so basically, never give up. Don't strive for perfection, but don't give up either.
That's it.